Hello.
Hello. I
You,
lost it. There it
no,
is.
you didn't.
Excuse me.
Welcome back.
To another wonderful week.
Um, this week
I'm
we're
breaking into my airhead. Sorry.
we're talking about lady killers, or in my case, was she a killer?
I
Um,
definitely was. I just want to say,
who you
we
got going on over there? What is that?
it's airhead bites.
Is it good?
Yeah, but I don't know if you can eat them.
I mean, it'll be fine if I just eat
Get
one.
you one. Which what? Hold on. I got a. I thought I had a watermelon one, but I don't.
I got a pink one.
Um,
Pink one's a safe bet usually.
it's a raspberry lemonade.
Oh shit. Artificial raspberry hasn't been bothering me as much as it used
There you
to.
go. Anyway, so we mentioned last week that Brittany wrote the next couple of episodes for me because I had a shit week. And I'm really sad because I was really excited about looking this one up. I was really excited about doing the research on this one. I've been wanting to do one on this for a minute.
Yeah, but you'll get to learn as you go.
I will. I will.
So, I'm gonna start off, and this episode gave me an idea for another episode. Whenever I put the first thing on this one, so I'll go ahead and jump right into it with a little nursery rhyme. Let me tighten down my mic
Sorry if any of
so
y'all
I
have
don't blow y'all
misophonia
away.
and y'all are hearing us smacking and chewing in the
It shouldn't
mic.
be too bad. So, Lizzie Borden took. Oh, if you know, sing along. Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. So, I decided to do Lizzie Borden for this one. It's still unknown if she did it or not, and I don't. I'll give you my opinion at the end of it. So Lizzie Andrew Borden was born on July 19th, 1860 in Fall River, Massachusetts to Sarah Anthony Morse Borden and that says Andrew. That's supposed to be Andrew. Andrew Jackson Borden. Andrew and Sarah were married on December 25th, 1845 and had 3 children together. Emma Lenora on March 1st, 1851. Alice Esther on May 3rd, 1856, but she died before the age of 2, and then they had Lizzie in 1860. Sarah died on March 26th, 1863, when Lizzie was just under 3 years old. On her deathbed, she made Emma promise that she would always watch over Lizzie. Andrew remarried on June 6th, 1865 to Abigail Abby Durfee Gray, and the two never had any children of their own. Both Emma and Lizzie lived with their father and stepmother well into adulthood. Andrew descended from a wealthy and influential family that by 1714 owned nearly all of Fall River. He grew up in modest surroundings, though, and apprenticed as a carpenter and would help to build the house at 92 2nd Street. This is the home he would purchase decades later. Later, he would become an undertaker, and after a $1,000 loan, he formed a business partnership with William M. Almy. As undertakers, both men prospered in the manufacturing and selling of caskets and other furniture. By the 1850s, Andrew had moved into a career in property development, later becoming president of the Union Savings Bank. A man of many
A jack of all trades.
yes. He also served as director for several major companies in the area, such as Globe Yarn Mill Company, Troy Cotton and Woolen Manufacturing Company, Durfee Safe Deposit and Trust Co., and the First National Bank. In April 1872, Borden purchased the home at 92 2nd Street for just $10,000. Adjusted for inflation over 152 years, that would be $251,431.
That's still cheap in today's market.
Yeah, it definitely would not go for that. Andrew and his wife and daughters moved into the home. Emma was 21 and Lizzie was 11 at the time. Andrew was known for being very frugal despite his great wealth. Most of his family lived in a more fashionable neighborhood at the time called The Hill, but he was content to stay right where he was. He also never upgraded the home with indoor plumbing and electricity, which he definitely could have afforded. Instead, the family used oil lamps. I couldn't find a clear answer about the bathroom situation, but I'm just assuming it was an outhouse situation. Andrew did, however, employ servants to keep the house in order. Andrew's frugality was known to be a point of tension within the household, and Lizzie often voiced aspirations to be like her relatives on the hill. Neither Emma or Lizzie were ever close with their stepmother and simply referred to her as Mrs. Borden. They rarely took meals with their father and stepmother. Both girls had fears that as their father grew more prosperous, that Abby's family would attempt to seek access to their father's fortune. When the girls were growing up, the household was religious, and the family would regularly attend church at the Central Congregational Church, which was located on the hill. Despite the family's wealth, due to Andrew's frugal nature, they didn't really fit in with the town's aristocracy. Andrew also had a bit of a reputation for being somewhat shady in some of his business dealings, and this relegated the family to middle-class social status. Lizzie kept herself involved in activities and organizations in the church and even taught Sunday school. Additionally, both Emma and Lizzie helped their father manage his rental properties when they were old enough. Emma was described as prim, confident, apparently reliable in every fiber, and she rarely left the home. Lizzie, on the other hand, was much more outgoing and active than her older sister. She was described as having red hair and was attractive. Honestly, I did not imagine her having red hair.
Well, and honestly, the word red hair and attractive back in those times never went together.
Yeah. Lizzie had several suitors and escorts, but most of them were not from the hill, which is where she aspired to end up. If Lizzie were to accept the affections of a suitor outside of her aspirations, her father would send them away and call them fortune hunters, leaving both Emma and Lizzie doomed to spinsterhood. In the months leading up to the murder, it was reported that tensions were high, particularly after Andrew gifted Abby and her sister with a real estate gift. Emma and Lizzie demanded that they too be granted a piece of real estate and were given the house they had lived in until their mother died. Just a few weeks later, they sold it back to their father for $5,000. In May 1892, Andrew believed that the pigeons roosting in the barn were just pests and killed them with a hatchet. Lizzie had recently built a roost for the pigeons and was very upset by this. After this, a family argument led the sisters to take an extended vacation to New Bedford, Massachusetts. They were to return a week before the murders. However, Lizzie did not go straight home. Instead, she stayed in a local rooming house for 4 days before returning back to the family home. In the days leading up to the murder, the entire household had been violently ill, and on August 3rd, Abby called for Dr. Seabury Bowen to visit and told him that she feared they had all been poisoned. The doctor said that it was most likely due to bad food, and he offered to take a look at the rest of the family. But Andrew, who was angry that Abby had wasted money on a doctor, ordered him to leave. That evening, the younger brother of their sister of this... Wait a minute.
It would be their uncle, their mom's brother.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I put an apostrophe S. I was like, what? So the Uncle John Morse visited the Borden home unannounced. Uncle John had disengaged from the girls' lives about 2 years prior to the murders, but began showing up randomly for visits with his nieces. It was alleged that he was there to discuss business matters with Andrew. Some have speculated that their conversations were about property transfers, and that may have aggravated an already tense situation. Uncle John spent the night upstairs. The next morning, August 4th, 1892, why did I keep putting Andrew? Andrew and Abby Borden were found brutally murdered in their home. At this time, Lizzie was 32 and her sister Emma was 41, both spinsters and still living with their father and stepmother. On the day of the murders, doing something out of the ordinary for her, Emma was out of town visiting with a friend in Fairhaven, Massachusetts, about 15 miles away. Lizzie was the first person to discover her father's body. She found him bludgeoned to death on the sofa, and his face was almost unrecognizable. She screamed for the maid, Bridget Sullivan, who ran to fetch Dr. Bowen, and a neighbor called Adelaide Churchill. Bridget and Adelaide discovered Abby Borden in the upstairs guest bedroom, also dead and badly beaten. Both of their deaths were caused by someone wielding a small, sharp hatchet. Soon, the police arrived to the home and searched for evidence of an intruder and found nothing. They also searched for a murder weapon, and in the basement they found 2 hatchets, 2 axes, and a hatchet head with a broken handle. The hatchet head was suspected to be the murder weapon due to the break in the handle appearing to be fresh. Oddly, there was no blood found anywhere except on the victims' bodies. It didn't take long for the crime scene to be contaminated, as it filled with not just police, but also journalists and curious neighbors. Additionally, this is giving John Benet Ramsey vibes, right, because the police basically did the same thing. People trampled all over that crime scene.
Right.
Additionally, the family was allowed to clean some of the home, and no one bothered to check either Lizzie or Bridget for any blood stains, and only made superficial examinations of Lizzie's bedroom. Locals later criticized the police for their lack of due diligence. The police concluded that someone within the Borden household must have committed the murders, and Emma was ruled out due to her being away. The police never put any focus on the maid, Bridget, and fully turned their suspicions to Lizzie. Dr. Bowen sent a telegram to Emma in Fairhaven urging her to return to Fall River and letting her know of the deaths of her father and stepmother. Only 2 days later, newspapers began running stories that there was evidence that Lizzie may have had something to do with the murder of her father and stepmother. During the lackluster police investigation, it was discovered that Abby's body was cold, meaning she was killed first, and the coroner estimated that this would have occurred between 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. Abby was struck in the head with a hatchet approximately 18 times, and it was concluded that she was face to face with her killer at the time of the attack, but the first blow struck the side of her head and caused her to turn and fall face down on the floor, and then 17 more blows were directed at the back of her head. Abby was 64 years old at the time of her death. She was described as being a short, humorless soul who displayed little or no affection, while others would describe her as being kind, generous, and eager to please.
That's 2 ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. When the police arrived, Andrew's body was still warm, and the coroner estimated that the murder occurred between 10:30 a.m. and 11:10 a.m., and he was struck in the face with a hatchet 10 times. Andrew was 70 years old and was described as tall and thin and had hooded dark eyes with a long, mean mouth. In the investigation, the events of the morning were reconstructed, and it was found that after breakfast, Andrew Borden and John Morse chatted in the sitting room for almost an hour. Afterward, Morse left at 8:45, and Andrew left at 9 a.m. to take a walk. Meanwhile, Bridget was washing windows, and Abby was cleaning the guest bedroom that was being used by John Morse, and Lizzie was in the dining room doing some ironing. Mr. Borden returned home at about 10:30, and Lizzie discovered her father's body at about 11:10 a.m. On August 11th, Lizzie was arrested and was being represented by Andrew Jennings, a longtime attorney for the Borden family. The next day, Lizzie entered a plea of not guilty and was transported to the Taunton, Massachusetts jail, which was 8 miles north of Fall River. The preliminary hearing occurred in Fall River from August 25th through September 1st, 1892. And a few months later, the grand jury heard the evidence from November 7th until the 21st, and Lizzie was indicted for murder on December 2nd, 1892. Over this time period, the newspapers were flooded with varying accounts of the murder. The Boston Daily Globe reported rumors that Lizzie and her stepmother never got along together peacefully, and that for a considerable time they have not spoken. It was also noted by the newspaper that other family members insisted that the relationship between Lizzie and her stepmother Abby was totally normal. The Boston Herald reported, "From the consensus of opinion it can be said, in Lizzie Borden's life there is no one unmaidenly nor a single deliberately unkind act." There were hundreds of articles around the world that would describe the deaths in horrible detail, providing speculation on the possible motives and even other possible suspects. All the while, Lizzie was being held in the Taunton, Massachusetts jail until her trial began on June 5th, 1893, in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And by this time, Lizzie had become a media sensation. During the investigation, inquest, and the trial, there were several suspicious events that were uncovered. During the inquest, it was found that the day prior to the murders, Lizzie had tried to buy a prussic acid, also known as cyanide, from a drugstore, but was denied because she did not have a prescription. This testimony was suppressed at trial. Bridget Sullivan testified that when Andrew returned to the Borden home from his walk at about 10:30, that the lock was jammed and she had to let him in. She said that during this time she had heard Lizzie laugh from the top of the stairs, which Lizzie denied. Shortly after Andrew had arrived home, he asked where Abby was, and Lizzie replied that she had received a note to visit with a sick friend. However, neither the sick friend or a note were ever found. Lizzie also told investigators that she had removed Andrew's boots and helped him into slippers before he laid down for his nap, but when police found him, he was wearing his boots. All of the windows in the front door were found to be locked, and the only way that anyone could have entered the home was through the door in the kitchen. The women had been in and out through this door all morning. If someone had managed to sneak in this way, how would they have come in and escaped after murdering 2 people without anyone noticing? When she was being questioned by police, Lizzie would often give confusing and contradictory answers and gave several different places she was during the murders. She also appeared to be erratic and calm, but this was explained away because she had been given morphine to calm her nerves. It is also entirely possible that she was grieving or in shock after finding her father butchered on the sofa. I don't know that I would act all there either.
Right.
It was thought impossible that Lizzie did not hear a thing during the crimes, but she did claim to be in the barn loft. But authorities found there to be no footprints on the dusty floor of the barn loft. Also, it was stifling hot in the loft, and no one would have wanted to be up there that day. The rumor mill produced the assumption that the victims' wills were missing, and the theory was that Andrew's will likely left much of his estate to his wife Abby, who would have left almost nothing to Emma and Lizzie. Alternatively, should Abby have died first, everything would be left to Andrew's daughters. At trial, Lizzie's attorney spotlighted the close relationship that she had with her father and the many church, charity, and volunteer efforts that she was involved in. In turn, the prosecution stressed the brutality of the crimes and Lizzie's hatred for her stepmother. During the trial, Emma strongly supported her sister and testified in her defense. Lizzie did not take the stand in her own defense, and her inquest testimony was not admitted as evidence. On June 20th, 1893, Lizzie Borden was acquitted of all charges after just 90 minutes of deliberation. It was determined that there was a lack of evidence linking her to the scene of the crime. Upon reading the verdict, Lizzie let out a yelp of joy. It was reported in the New York Times, "It will be with a certain relief to every right-minded man or woman who has followed the case that the jury at New Bedford has not only acquitted Miss Lizzie Borden of the atrocious crime with which she was charged, but has also done so with a promptness that was very significant. Officially, the case remains unsolved, and no one else was ever investigated for the crime or crimes. It has been questioned over the years how she could have escaped conviction, with some saying that it was because she was a sweet-looking Christian woman who could not have been capable of murder, and others said it was due to her petiteness because she couldn't have had the strength to kill someone. Some speculated that there was a reluctance to execute a woman. After she was acquitted, Lizzie returned back to the family home where she continued to live with her sister Emma. As you can imagine, rumors began to fly, and most people in town did not believe that she was innocent, and the local papers and the public would not let this case go, and she became a pariah. This did not deter her from choosing to stay in Fall River, Massachusetts. At the time of his death, Andrew Borden owned many properties around Fall River and surrounding areas, and had holdings in several prominent mills in the area. After the estate was settled, it was valued at $300,000, which is approximately $8 million today. There was a considerable settlement to claims by Abby's family, but Lizzie and Emma still inherited a large portion of the estate, and this allowed them to purchase a new home together. Lizzie finally got her house on the hill, which she named Maplecroft, in 1893. It was a Queen Anne Victorian with about 4,000 square feet. It had 8 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and 6 fireplaces. The girls hired a housekeeper, a coachman, and live-in maids. It was around this same time that Lizzie began to go by the name Lisbeth. She continued to attend the same church and hoped that her newfound wealth would finally move her into the upper-class society she had longed for since she was a child. Unfortunately, friends and acquaintances alike stopped speaking to her, and she was no longer met with cordial greetings, and people would not look at her in the face. She did not do much to heal her reputation when she began to flaunt her wealth, and she never wore mourning clothes. She purchased a new carriage that was pulled by 2 beautiful horses. She purchased expensive clothes and would travel to Boston, New York, and Washington, D.C., and would stay in expensive hotels and go to the theater. The newspapers ran rampant with stories about her luxurious lifestyle, and every year on the anniversary of the murders, the Fall River Globe would print an article about the crime and would always openly point fingers at Lizzie. The gossip train never stopped, and she had eggs thrown at her home. She was shunned at church services, and children would skip rope to the nursery rhyme I started this portion of the episode with. She was accused of shoplifting in 1897 in Providence, Rhode Island, and this further tarnished her reputation. Emma and Lizzie lived a peaceful life on the hill until 1904, when Lizzie met an actress named Nance O'Neill. The 2 women formed a strong bond. Some speculated that they were lovers. Emma disapproved of this friendship, and after Lizzie threw a party for O'Neill and her theatrical troupe at their home in 1905, Emma abruptly moved out. It is not known where Emma went when she first left, but years later in 1923, she was living in a nursing home in Newmarket, New Hampshire, where she had moved for health reasons. It was also alleged that she moved here in order to avoid renewed interest after there was another book published about the murders. Lizzie continued to live in her home on the hill, and at some point she replaced the carriage and horses with a fine limousine. She also continued to do some extensive traveling. As she grew older, she became more stout and matronly. In 1926, Lizzie underwent a surgery to remove her gallbladder. During her recovery, she became chronically ill. She died in Fall River, Massachusetts on June 1st, 1927. Her funeral details were not published and very few people attended. Her sister Emma died of kidney issues just 9 days later on June 10th, 1927, in Newmarket, New Hampshire. The two sisters are buried beside their father in the family plot in Oak Grove Cemetery. The house where her father and stepmother were murdered still stands today and has become a tourist attraction. The home is still laid out exactly as it was. The furnishings are all in their rightful place. Decor has been duplicated, and the original doors and hardware remain in place. There are artifacts from the case that are displayed, and other memorabilia from that time period line the shelves and mantels. If you wish, you can stay in the house, as it is not only a museum, but also a bed and breakfast. There are 2 suites and 4 rooms for rent. However, if you are staying multiple nights, you must vacate your room in order to accommodate for the daily tours. For $20 extra, you can enjoy breakfast, which includes foods of the time period, but with a more modern twist. The rooms run from $250 to $300 a night for 2 guests, and only one of the suites has a private bathroom. Not only can you tour the home, but there are a number of different types of tours available, including a ghost hunting tour, as the home is reportedly haunted. But I'll save the ghost stories for a different episode. So,
What's your opinion? Do you think that Lizzie did it?
no.
Who do you think did it?
I think the uncle did it.
That's what I think.
I think the uncle did it. Because he was the only one that just, fucked off somewhere.
Right. Like, the whole time before you said that he had left, I'm thinking, where was he during this?
Yeah.
What? There's nothing else about him. If you want more of these, you can have more of these. But please check the flavors before you divulge into
My
the
throat feels a
raspberry
little
one.
funky.
I feel like the white one, and I think there's a cherry one or a citrus one in there. Might be your safest bet. Okay. So my portion, and like I said, I was really excited to do the research on this one, but shit happens. I'm covering Eileen Wuornos. Eileen Wuornos was born Eileen Carol Pittman on February 29th, 1956 in Rochester, Michigan, to Diane Wuornos and Leo Pittman, who had divorced prior to her birth. Sorry, excuse me. Her mother had her when she was just a teenager and eventually abandoned Eileen and her older brother Keith. The two were legally adopted by Diane's parents when Eileen was just 4 years old. Eileen never knew her biological father, who eventually found himself imprisoned in mental institutions for child molestation. He committed suicide while he was in custody. Eileen grew up in Troy, Michigan with her adoptive parents, her brother Keith, and her 2 older adoptive siblings who were biologically her aunt and uncle. When she was a young child, a fire scarred her face. After this, she developed an explosive temper and found it difficult to make new friends. Around the age of 10, Wuornos learned that her parents were biologically her grandparents, and this knowledge added more tension to an already unhappy household. Her grandfather, Laurie, was a strict disciplinarian who once forced Wuornos to watch him drown a kitten. Eileen would later go on to state that she was physically and sexually abused by her grandfather, and that she had also had sexual relations with her brother when they were children. By 11 years old, Eileen was offering sexual favors to the boys she knew if they would pay in or give her cigarettes. This resulted in the awful nickname Cigarette Pig. Her reputation in sex work only served to further isolate her from her peers. Eileen ran away on many occasions and was eventually sent to juvenile detention. At the age of 14, Eileen was pregnant, and Laurie sent her away to a home for unwed mothers in Detroit. She told her family that the pregnancy was the result of rape, but would later tell different stories. She gave birth to a baby boy in March 1971, and he was placed for adoption. While the father of the child is unknown, neighbors claim that the father was an older adult friend of Wuornos' grandfather. After giving birth, Eileen dropped out of school and would bounce between juvie and the Wuornos house and homelessness, where she would sleep in the woods or in abandoned cars. Her grandmother, Britta, struggled with alcoholism and died of cirrhosis of the liver on July 7th of 1971. By this time, Lowry refused to take care of 15-year-old Eileen any longer. Less than 5 years later, Lowry died by suicide in March of 1976, according to Sue Russell's book, Lethal Intent. Eileen did not attend his funeral. By this time, she had hitchhiked across the country and was an active sex worker. In 1974, Wuornos served prison time for driving while intoxicated and for firing a gun from a moving vehicle. At the age of 20, Eileen had made it to Florida. This is where she met a wealthy yachtsman named Louis Gratz Fell, who was 50 years her senior. Gross. The two were married in May of 1976. That's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Within a month, though, Fell left Eileen. He stated that she had a violent and ungovernable temper and had beaten him with his cane. Eileen asserted that he had been the one to attack her. The two were divorced on July 19th, 1976. This same month, her brother Keith died from cancer. In the mid-1970s, Wuornos was arrested for various crimes, including assault, disturbing the peace, and disorderly conduct, and by the early 1980s, she had served time for armed robbery after attempting to rob a convenience store while intoxicated and wearing a bikini. Her criminal record also included charges for forged checks, resisting arrest, theft, and drunk driving. There were also some other crimes that were most likely associated with the fake names that Wuornos habitually used. Now going by Lee, in June 1986, Wuornos met 24-year-old Tyria Moore at a gay bar in Daytona, Florida. The two women began what would be an intense 4.5-year long relationship and immediately started living together. My brain immediately was like, that tracks. Notes say, cue the U-Haul lesbian jokes.
You're welcome.
See, this is, subconsciously I knew this is how this was going to go down. Moore would hold normal jobs as a housekeeper or maid. Okay. Or maid, while Wuornos would engage in sex work along Florida highways. Wuornos was possessive and didn't like when her partner would interact with other people or when she went to work. The two would move frequently to a variety of motels, apartments, and trailer parks in Dayton and other areas of Florida. It was during this relationship that Wuornos' criminal tendencies took a more murderous turn. During the investigation, Moore eventually turned against Wuornos by helping the authorities. Between fall 1989 and fall of 1990, Wuornos fatally shot and killed 7 middle-aged and older men near highways in north central Florida. First was Richard Mallory. He was a 51-year-old repair shop owner who frequently hired sex workers. He was last seen on November 30th, 1989, and according to Moore's testimony, the very next day, Wuornos told her that she had killed a man. On December 13th, 1989, Mallory's body was found at an illegal dumping site in the woods by a Volusia County deputy several miles from where his car was found abandoned. Mallory had been shot in the chest several times. Over the next year, 5 more men were discovered. David Spears, 43, was found deceased and nude on June 1st, 1990, with 6 gunshot wounds to the chest. Part-time rodeo worker Charles Carskadden, 40, went missing on May 31st, 1990, and his remains were found on June 6th in Pasco County. He had been shot in the chest and stomach 9 times. 5 days after being reported missing, salesman Troy Burress, 50, was found dead on August 4th, 1990. He was found in an advanced state of decomposition, but the medical examiner was still able to determine that his cause of death was 2 gunshots to the torso. Child abuse investigator and retired Air Force Major and Police Chief Charles Dick Humphreys, 56, was found dead on September 12, 1990 in Marion County. His body was fully clothed and he had several gunshot wounds to the head and torso. His car was later found abandoned in Suwannee County. Walter Antonio, who was a truck driver and a reserve police officer in his 60s, was discovered deceased on November 19, 1990. He was found partially disrobed in a remote part of Dixie County. He had been shot 4 times in the back of the head. His car was later found in Brevard County.
That's where my sister lives, is Brevard County.
Nice. During this time, Warnos would return home with the new possessions to pawn and cars that she had borrowed. When she would pawn these items, she would use a variety of aliases, and this made tracking her a lot more difficult. That was until July 1990, when authorities were examining the vehicle of Peter Siems, which was found abandoned on July 4th, 1990. He was a 65-year-old missionary who had left Central Florida and was headed for New Jersey in June. Witnesses described seeing Warnos and Moore leave the car. The authorities were able to match a print from the door handle to Warnos. It has been speculated that she may have killed an 8th motorist. In the fall of 1990, it was being reported that the authorities were searching for 2 women who were suspected of murder, and this prompted Moore to flee Florida and leave Warnos. Warnos was arrested January 9th, 1991 at the Last Resort Bar in Port Orange, Florida.
Which I believe is still open.
Nice. It didn't take long for police to track down Moore in Pennsylvania, and she made a deal to gather evidence against Warnos in exchange for immunity from prosecution. In mid-January, over a phone call with Moore, Warnos admitted to murder. She said that she'd committed her crimes because she was desperately in love and wanted them to stay together. After the confession to Moore, against the advice of counsel, police videotaped Warnos confessing to 7 murders. As you can imagine, the public were fascinated by the case, which was primarily due to the nature of crimes and the intense media descriptions of Warnos as America's first female serial killer. She wasn't, though.
No, she wasn't.
She was dubbed the damsel of death in the media. Of all the people that reached out to Warnos during this time, an evangelical Christian couple made such an impact that they went on to legally adopt her. According to Arlene Prayle, after she had a dream in which she was told to take care of Warnos, she said that Jesus told her to write to Warnos, and so she did. What Warnos did not know was that Prayle was receiving money for giving interviews, including one with Nick Broomfield, who paid her $10,000. Prayle did use part of this money to hire Warnos a private attorney, Stephen Glazier. First, Warnos was prosecuted for Mallory's murder. The trial was during January 1992, and she asserted that she had been raped and assaulted by Mallory, but the details did not match her taped confession. It was not revealed in court, but Mallory had previously served time for sexual assault. Previously, detectives denied that there was any evidence to support Warnos' claim of rape or a history of sexual crimes by Mallory. This information wasn't discovered until November 1992, when Dateline NBC reported Michelle Gillen discovered that reporter Michelle Gillen had discovered that she had served 10 years, let me start that over. This information just wasn't discovered until November 1992, when Dateline NBC reported Michelle Gillen discovered that he had served 10 years in prison for violent rape in another state. There we go. The judge refused to allow this to be admitted in post-trial proceedings, and Warnos was never granted a retrial. On January 27th, 1992, a jury found Warnos, who by this time was 35, guilty of first-degree murder and robbery. The judge gave her the death penalty on January 31st. 2 months later, Warnos opted to plead no contest to the murders of Spears, Burris, and Humphreys. Later, she submitted 2 separate guilty pleas for the murders of Carskadden and Antonio, for which she received the death penalty for each. During her plea to the court, she held to her statement that Mallory had raped her. In a rambling statement, she said, "I wanted to confess to you that Richard Mallory did violently rape me, as I've told you, but these others did not. They only began to start to." On May 15, 1993, Judge Thomas Sawaya rendered 3 more death sentences. This led Warnos to turn to Assistant State Attorney Rick Ridgway and hiss, "I hope your wife and children get raped in the ass." As she was escorted out of the courtroom, she shouted at the judge, "Sentencing someone who was raped to death? Man! Sentencing someone who was raped to death, motherfucker," while giving him the bird.
Yeah. And we've already both said it in the course of this evening.
I didn't even hear it whenever you said it.
Absolutely.
When?
Was it earlier this episode or late last episode? I don't know.
I don't know.
But I think you said it in the first episode.
Oh, did I? See, I don't even know when I say it anymore. Oh, Sam's body has never been recovered, and Warnos was never charged with his murder. Initially, Warnos maintained the stance that these murders were committed in self-defense, but later she would recant these statements and admit that it was for profit. Investigators believed that she had killed men who had either picked her up or had stopped to help her on the highway. After a decade on death row, Warnos fired her appeals lawyers who had been working on a stay of execution. Even though a court-appointed attorney argued that Warnos had made comments that suggested that she was profoundly disconnected from reality, in April of 2002, the Florida Supreme Court ruled that she was able to fire her attorneys. In early October 2002, Florida Governor Jeb Bush lifted the temporary stay of execution after 3 psychiatrists stated that Warnos was mentally competent to understand the death penalty and the reasons for its implementation. On October 9th, 2002, Warnos was executed by lethal injection in Stark, Florida. She was pronounced dead at 9:47 a.m. and was the 10th woman to be executed in the United States since 1976 and was only the 2nd woman to be executed in Florida. Her reported last words were, I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the rock and I'll be back. Like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6th, like the movie, big mothership and all. I'll be back. Eileen Warnos's remains were cremated and her ashes were scattered by a tree in Michigan.
Bet you didn't see half of that coming.
I really didn't. I really didn't.
I didn't realize that this went down in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Because
kind of
like all of her crimes were when we were babies, and then we were in middle school when she was executed.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it was that close in our timelines.
Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, I thought we were so far removed from it. And honestly, at 35 years old, she looked like absolute dog shit.
Right. That's my age now. Do I look
She
that
looked
shitty?
so worse. So much worse. It's like
She's
that.
also a sex worker that had a really shitty childhood.
Oh, for sure. But it's like that thing I posted. I went to school with some of y'all. Why do you look 47? And I'm messy, so I just left it there knowing that I'm friends with a whole bunch of girls we went to high school with.
If the shoe fits.
You lace that shit up and you wear it.
Shit. I've got the nonprofit for this one. I'm pulling it up.
Okay.
But do I look that old? I mean, I don't think
we do. I don't think we do.
I look at myself in the mirror.
And there's some girls where I'm just yeah, we look like we're in our early 30s. Mid to early 30s, some of us.
And then there are some of us that look like we ain't aged since freaking high school.
And then there's some of us that look like we're about 20 years older than we are.
Bro.
And those are the girls who were going to the tanning bed in high school.
There's one person that we went to school with, and she just recently posted like a selfie. Girl ain't aged. Ain't aged. She looked just like she did when we were growing up.
I could name like 3 people that could be.
Hold on. I got you. Check teams.
One of them are a set of twins.
No.
Because neither of them look like they've aged.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's a hate crime.
Bingo.
Oh, yeah. She does look exactly like she did when we were in high school.
She ain't aged a bit. Ain't aged a bit. I commented on that. I was like, girl, you ain't aged. You have not. And like, honest to goodness, I saw her mom not too long ago. Her mom ain't aged either. I mean, like, her mom still looks like she did when we graduated.
Yeah.
God, I love that. I love this girl. She's always been a real one.
Yeah, she was always like hard ass vibes. Like, I just like,
you didn't want to
tough
fuck
as
with
shit.
her.
Yeah. But also, like, she was never mean to me. I never had beef with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We grew up playing ball together and stuff. I mean, I never had beef with her.
What's crazy is there was this little girl that rode my bus that I absolutely did not like. She did not like me. Guess what? We follow each other on TikTok now. Like each other's shit. Like, I don't post anything, but like I repost shit all the time.
Think who rode your bus?
Here, I'll just tell you. You may not. I don't know. You may not know her, but I'm sure you do. She was younger than us.
Oh, I know exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. We despised each other. There was also a girl that we graduated with. I think she graduated. I'm pretty sure she did. That me and her have never liked each other, and we will probably never like each other. I don't know what it is. Our personalities, like, I think she's fine, but there's just something about her that rubs me the wrong way. And I'm sure that there's something about me that rubs her the wrong way because we have never been able to stand the sight of each other.
We just need to start name dropping. Oh.
And she still doesn't know because, like, in middle school, so
that one right there, she's an acquired taste.
Yeah. So in middle school,
but I can point this one out. Like, if I see her from a distance,
yeah.
If I just see the way she walks, I know exactly who it is.
Yeah.
And her daughter walks the exact same. I could pick that child out. I ain't even really looked at this kid's face, but I can tell who it is just by the way she carries herself.
Yeah. But like, so in middle school, we had like the band room and the choir room, and they were the only like carpeted rooms in the middle school, and they were new carpet.
Yeah.
So we had to leave our drinks and stuff, unless it was water, out in the hallway.
Yeah.
So
I got ISS one time for bringing a Sprite into the choir room.
This girl started stealing my Dr. Pepper every day. Would steal my Dr. Pepper. I drank it. It wasn't a new Dr. Pepper.
I would have started spitting in it.
I did it worse. She never stole it again, though.
Did you pee in it?
No.
Oh.
So, what I did was filled the bottle up with vinegar and mixed food coloring to make a brown color. Put it in the bottle. Dr. Pepper, gone. Next day, that box Dr. Pepper was still there when I got out of my class. And it never got stolen again.
Got him! Lord, that makes me think of high school and the Mountain Dew bottles with the Bacardi. No, yeah, it was Bacardi Superior, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I went to an emu farm.
Why are you so loud? She said. That was a good day.
It's awful.
That was a good day.
It was awful.
That was a fun.
Why did I do that?
I don't know how we didn't get busted because we're sitting in first period passing this bottle around. Why did that teacher not be like, I know what y'all got?
Because he was old and he wasn't paying attention and he didn't care.
He didn't care. Lord. I didn't learn nothing in that class.
No, I failed. Well,
we had like, what, 2 or 3 different teachers that year for that class?
Well, we started out with one, and then she retired. Why you would start out the school year and then retire makes absolutely no sense to me. but I was kind of scared of her anyway, so I was glad she was going. And then this guy stepped in and took over.
He started out as a sub, but they made him permanent.
Yeah, and he had absolutely no business being a teacher.
Oh, absolutely not. But he brought us sausage biscuits almost like
yeah, he brought all the time because he was also our homeroom.
Yeah,
and like this was when I started getting into reading too, so it was partially my fault. But like, because I found a book, I really liked it, I could not put it down. Like when I start reading a book, I read a book. Like I don't. It's all or nothing. So I'm reading this book and I'm like failing Algebra 1. So I'm like, what can I do to get caught up? Can I turn in stuff late? You know, da da da. He's like, yeah, sure. That's fine. I'll accept it. He accepted it. Didn't fucking grade it. So I had to take the class a second time with somebody else. Thank God. And he led. It was his only year there.
Oh. I don't even remember there being a teacher for only 1 year.
I would have to look at my yearbook, but I can see her face. It was a lady, an older lady. She was so nice. But she made us come up to the board and do work, and I hated that. But I only had to take the second semester of it, because you remember Algebra 1 was 2 semesters. It was like the intro to algebra, and then Algebra 1 was semester 2. So I passed intro to algebra with the first teacher.
Miss Bates. Did you have Miss Bates?
No.
She treated us like we were in elementary school, which sounds horrible, but it was fantastic, and it was so much fun.
Yeah.
She was so much fun.
No, I never had her.
She always told us stories about her kids. She said one time they went to the drive-in movie theater with their kids to watch a Scooby-Doo movie, and she said all the lights cut out, and one of her kids hollers, "Scooby-Doo, where are you?" She was so funny. She still teaches. I think she's in Harpeth now.
Nice. I just remember somebody telling me that she was like, you can call me anything you want. You call me Miss Bates, Mrs. Bates, but you can't call me Master Bates.
She was funny as hell. She was my favorite.
My freshman year, me and another girl that we went to school with who lives in Dixon now. Me and her had Foundations 1 math or Foundations 2 math with this. It was a coach. And after some of the stories he told us, I'm like not really surprised, because this is the same teacher that told us, like, mind you, we're all fresh. I think most of us were freshmen.
First of all,
he was only there for a semester. He was there for 1 semester. So he told us a story about he went to Mardi Gras one year. He's in New Orleans. He got so wasted that he stole a manhole cover and run off with it.
How you steal a manhole cover? They're heavy.
Precariously. Well, by the end of the semester, his wife and him were getting a divorce. And his wife was like, he's been touching our children.
Oh.
So he was only at the high school for a semester.
I don't know who that would be. But the other student that was in that class with you, is it the one with all the kids?
Yeah.
That lives in Dixon?
Yeah.
With the good boobs?
Yeah.
Okay.
And his name was...
I knew that's who you were going to say.
He was only there for a semester.
Man, we had some questionable figures in our schools.
Yeah.
Questionable figures in our schools.
Yeah. And we had, do you remember the one that was dating a student? Secretly?
Yeah.
And when she graduated, they got
married.
Yeah, they got married and together. Fucked off to Florida or something.
I thought he was hot. I was always so jealous when she'd come into the classroom, because I'm like, leave him alone. That's my man.
Ugh. See, we just had some...
See, I was there for the...
And it was always men. It was always dudes.
Oh, yeah.
And almost always their name started with Coach.
Yeah. I mean...
Get it together. Keep in your fucking pants. Swear.
There was that one coach that I got a sneak peek preview of. in the field house that time on accident.
Is this the one that everybody thought was so cute?
Oh, absolutely.
You ever see his wife?
Amazon woman.
Yeah, big old tall redhead.
She was so jealous of any female student that showed him any type of attention. I'm
sure it was with good reason.
Well, I went to my freshman year. I was dating a football player that was a sophomore when we were freshmen, and I went to the football banquet with them. And we were standing there talking to him, and he reached over, and I had his class first period, first semester. And so I quickly made it as teacher's pet in that class, and remained teacher's pet for him for the duration of my time at the high school. Even though that's the only time I had his class. But
I had his class for 2 weeks, and for some reason we all ended up getting moved to a different teacher.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're at the football banquet, and we're standing there talking to him, and he just kind of threw his arm around my shoulders. Nothing major. I didn't think anything about it. His wife quickly came over and pulled him away and threw her arm around him to make sure that she was claiming her piece.
I'm sure when they got out to the car, she was like, "These are children."
Probably. Lord have mercy. All right, on to our nonprofit.
So let's stop reminiscing about high school again.
You're right, because I could go on and on about these coaches. I got some stories. Oh, I got some incriminating stories.
We got one. He's on the school board, and he was fine. He was all right. I think the worst thing he did was dip in the back of the classroom during movie. He would put on movies so he could sit at the back of the classroom and kind of low key take a nap.
Is it? Go ahead, continue. I'll
and he would just spit his dip, the juice out the door.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Never mind. I know exactly who.
Love that, the Chamber of Commerce posted, it's board member appreciation week, and they posted a picture. I was like, he's on the school board, and Danny goes, "Yeah, you didn't know that?" I was like, "Oh shit, I voted for him. Yes, I knew that."
I love him. Still to this day, if I see him out in public, I'm like, "Coach." He's like, "Taylor." Cracks me up. He's so funny. And if him and who's now the principal, if they see me out, they make sure that they make sure that we make eye contact, and they call me out. "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah. Well, what's funny is, so the now principal, he came into our shop.
Hate him.
I mean, he's kind of weird.
He is weird, but I loved him. I
had him for world history.
Yeah.
And I was fine. I mean, he was fine. But so he came into the shop one day. Well, and also just to note, his wife is the principal at the rival high school. But he came into the shop one day and
did you have her freshman year for English?
I did. She remembers me too. I was like, "Oh," because I barely remember you. But so he comes in, he's placing an order, and Danny's stepmom asks what his first name is, and he says his first name, and Danny goes, "Wrong," and they just look at him, and he goes, "It's Coach."
Well, that's there's one teacher.
Ooh. I got another story, but it's totally separate from this.
Okay, there's one teacher that taught biology.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't coach shit.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when I had his class, one of the guys that was in that class with us that was older than us, I can't even remember this kid's name. I don't know. He didn't play sports or nothing. He was dead.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that kid started calling him coach.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "I'm the coach of biology." And so...
Is this the one in the biology classroom, all the cabinets? Is it this one?
He was then, yes.
Played banjo?
Yes, I think so. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I loved him.
Same. So to this day, I still call him coach. And so when we went to the school to meet all of Maddie's teachers...
He called me patty cakes.
It was always my favorite because for extra credit you could bake a cake and decorate it in the shape of a plant cell or something.
Mm-hmm.
So my nephew, when my nephew started high school, he was like, "Oh yeah, I have this teacher," and I was like, "Call him Coach. Just look at him and say, my aunt told me to call you Coach, and he'll know exactly who it is." So he did, and he goes, "Your aunt is Chelsea, isn't it?" And he was like, "Yeah." So then the day that we went in for open house at the beginning of the school year with Maddie to meet all our teachers, she doesn't have him, but we had to walk right next to or right by his classroom because she has another one of the teachers that we had. So we kind
he
of
was so nice too.
We stopped by this teacher's classroom, and he was talking to some other parents, and TJ and I just kind of poked our heads around the corner and made eye contact with him, and he went, and he finished up with those parents because we kind of hung out. He finished up with those parents. He's like, "Do I have one of yours?" And I was like, "Not yet, but you will real soon." I said, she's not ready for your class yet. And he just he was like, "Oh man." And I'm like, "How's it going, Coach?" And he goes, "Why y'all called me that, I will never know."
I vaguely remember that like being a thing, but I don't know that I ever called him Coach.
Oh, I still to this day, every one of them, like if they were my coach or not. Well,
he took us on the coolest field trips.
I know.
That man is obsessed with the Civil War.
Yes. Still.
We went on about 4 different Civil War themed field trips.
For a biology class?
No, for the 1 year that I had him, he taught U.S. history. It was like the 1 year, 1 semester he taught U.S. history. And this man had been chomping at the bit to do that.
For sure.
So I'm so glad that I got to take that class.
I didn't get that.
I did end up having him for biology because I took it with somebody. No, it wasn't biology. It was life science. Because I took it
I had him with life science and biology. No, I had life science with the first teacher, the coach, the hot one.
I didn't have that with him. I think I started out with him, and then I got moved over to the one that starts with a J.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I ended up failing that class.
Jesus dude is what we called him.
Yes. I wonder how he's doing these days. I don't know. But anyway, so I ended up taking the class with him, failed, but not because of my work, because I just didn't want to show up. So I wouldn't. And then he was like, "You might as well not even come for the exam because you're going to fail this class anyway based on your absences." And I was like,
"Got it.
See you next term." But I ended up taking it with the other guy.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it better because I liked him better.
He's so much fun. He is so much fun.
Because the other guy, all he wanted to do was watch Jurassic Park. I think I watched Jurassic Park 5 times in that man's class. I can't watch that movie these days.
Maybe I'm not. The Jesus dude wanted to watch Jurassic Park?
Yeah, it was all the time.
Maybe he just really liked Harry Connick Jr.
Harry Connick Jr.
Not in. Who is it that's in it then? It's not Harry Connick Jr.
No, it's what is his damn name?
Jeff Goldblum.
Yes.
I always do that. I always call him Harry Connick Jr.
Those are 2 totally different individuals.
Did you have another story that you were going to tell that was unrelated?
Okay, so the unrelated story is I heard a ghost story.
Yeah?
About one of our local schools.
Yes.
So it's the one that's down this way by the dollar store.
Okay.
So it's an older school, right?
Yeah.
Been there for ever.
I don't know that I've ever been inside that school outside of the gym.
I haven't been in that school. So the gym, now speaking of, so one of our customers is a former basketball coach at that school.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like...
That's why I went in that gym, was for basketball.
Well, he said, he would... Because he said, there's weird shit that happens in that school. And, which was backed up by a teacher that I know at that school. She was like, I hear doors click. And she's like, not like close, but you know how the little metal thing will just click?
Yeah.
She's like, I hear that all the time. And she's like, you know what? I'm just going to go to my classroom. And I'm just going to not even think about it. Well, he, back in the day, or it was a few years ago or whatever. So he was a coach at this school for basketball. I think it was girls basketball. And he said, after all the teammates would leave and their parents were gone, and he's sweeping up the floor to make sure it's clean, and whatever. And he's like, and out in the hallway, I'm hearing a bunch of chatter, like people just. He goes and looks, not a soul in sight. So he's like, that's weird. He goes back to his sweeping, goes home. Well, apparently this happened a few times, to the point that his wife refused to go to basketball practice with him. She was like, no, I will stay here. And then it got to be so frequent. He was like, I just started doing my after practice cleanup and stuff with headphones on. He was like, because it can't get you if you can't hear it. And so the teacher that I know, she's like, yep.
I want to research
absolutely
into that now.
And like me and Danny were talking, that whole area is old, all of it's old, but that whole little area is
it's just got a vibe to it.
Yeah. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. And this was somebody who I was like looking at him and the way he just carries himself and talks, you would not think that he would believe in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But he was, and then we were telling him about the shop, and I was like, nobody smokes in here, but sometimes we'll be sitting here and
y'all's shop is stupid.
It smells like somebody just smoked a pack of cigarettes in here.
Y'all's shop is stupid.
And then, but yeah. Anyway. So you've got the nonprofit?
I do. This one, so I wanted to try and tie it in with our whole lady killer situation, I guess. This is the National Center for Victims of Crime. It's a nonprofit organization that advocates for victims' rights, trains professionals who work with victims, and serves as a trusted source of information on victims' issues. After more than 35 years, they remain the most comprehensive national resource committed to advancing victims' rights and helping victims of crime build their lives. The National Center is, at its core, an advocacy organization committed to and working on behalf of crime victims and their families. Rather than focus the entire organization's work on one type of crime or victim, the National Center addresses all types of crime. So they collaborate with local, state, and federal partners. You can learn more about it with the link that we'll provide, as well as donate. So I thought that it was pretty cool.
Yeah. I like it when we're able to tie in
That's what I try to do every time.
I try, but sometimes,
I feel
like Valentine's Day,
yeah.
What in the hell was I going to find for that?
Right. I feel like at some point, pretty soon, well, I mean, I did that the last time we recorded with the Star Wars themed one. The nerds need the love too.
I guess so.
But, all right, guys. Thanks for coming and listening to another week of what I know is your favorite podcast that there is out there.
Yeah.
And since it's your favorite, you should most definitely make sure that you're following us on all of the socials and sharing out those socials, such as Facebook.
And the Instagram.
TikTok.
X.
And email us with your ideas, topic ideas, constructive criticisms and whatnot. At wandersofweird
@gmail.com.
Oh, I don't know if y'all could hear that whisper, but there was one there. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
What about, okay, so the last one I gave you the ick with the daddy part. So,
yeah.
Yes, mommy.
Ew. That gives me more ick.
Oh.
Okay, bye.
Hey, bye.